The naval base lay under a moonless sky, a thin mist curling over asphalt like a living thing. At the far edge, where floodlights met darkness, the SEAL gym stood awake and humming. Inside, fluorescent tubes cast a steady, cold glow across polished floors. The only sound was the slow, deliberate rasp of a broom. Sam Sully, Riker moved across the wide expanse with the quiet efficiency of someone who had repeated this ritual thousands of times. 73 years had straightened his back into a line as true as a rifle barrel. Each motion of the broom was measured, each pivot balanced. No wasted energy, no hesitation. His blue coveralls bore a single stitched word, Janitor. Nothing else hinted at a lifetime of war. Outside, dawn's first gray smear touched the horizon. Reveille would sound soon, stirring the younger men, but for now Sully held the gym alone. He paused, listening to the hum of lights, the distant pulse of the sea against the breakwater, the subtle tremor of storm fronts building far offshore. His senses cataloged it all automatically. Even after decades, the habit of total awareness never left. The door banged open. A gust of salt air rode in with the laughter of half-awake recruits. Their boots struck the concrete with the confidence of men certain of their strength. To them, the janitor was scenery, an aging fixture like the weight racks or the cinder block walls. "Morning, Pops," one called, grinning at his buddy. The comments drew a quick round of snickers. Sully neither turned nor flinched. He shifted the broom with unhurried precision, eyes on the floor, ears on every detail around him. The subtle scrape of boots, the metallic clank of a dropped water bottle, the small but telling change in the storm's distant thunder. Commander Briggs entered with a burst of energy that belonged to men still climbing the ladder of their careers. His voice filled the gym. "Gentlemen, warm up on the mats. PT in 5. And you," his eyes flicked to Sully. "Make sure this floor stays clear. We've got warriors to train." Sully's pale blue gaze met his for a single heartbeat. "Dust makes for bad lungs," he said quietly. Then he returned to sweeping. Briggs smirked, the recruits chuckled, and the moment passed. As the gym filled with the metallic rhythm of weights and the sharp cadence of counted push-ups, Sully retreated to the storage closet. He closed the door behind him and let the echoes fade. The air smelled of cleaning solvent and salt carried from the sea. He sat on an overturned. He was 20 again, naked but for black paint and a belt of explosives, moving through surf so cold it numbed the soul. Moonlight revealed nothing. He could hear his teammates breathing through rebreathers, faint and steady. Overhead, enemy sentries paced wooden docks, their footsteps a metronome of danger. One cough, one clink of metal, and the mission would end in a single white blossom of gunfire. The memory sharpened until he could taste the brine, until the sound of the modern gym vanished entirely. Then, with the same control that once kept him alive, he drew a slow breath and let the ghosts recede. Evening arrived cloaked in thick storm clouds. Lightning flickered beyond the skylights, casting quicksilver shadows across the quiet gym. Sully locked the doors, checked each latch, and resumed his patient work. Somewhere else on base, Commander Briggs outlined plans for a surprise nighttime security drill, a harmless bit of fun to see whether the old janitor would startle or flee. The storm deepened. Rain began to fall in heavy, deliberate drops, each one striking the roof like a muffled drumbeat. Far offshore, thunder rolled, long and low, as if some enormous creature were turning in its sleep. The storm arrived like an unscheduled inspection, sudden, unavoidable, and absolute. Rain hammered the roof in sheets, drumming a rhythm older than language. Flashes of lightning strobed through the high windows, each burst freezing the gym in stark, white, before plunging it back into shadow. Sully moved steadily through the cavernous space, brooms sweeping arcs across the polished floor, a lighthouse keeper inside a private tempest. The outer doors banged open again. A knot of SEAL trainees spilled in, laughter carried on the wet wind. Their gray shirts clung to muscled frames. Water ran in small rivers from their hair and gear. Among them strode Petty Officer Kane, a man as brash as the storm itself. He was all swagger, broad shoulders, a jaw made for defiance, eyes bright with the restless energy of youth. "Well, look who's guarding the place," Kane called, shaking rain from his arms. Sully stooped to retrieve the broom. As he bent, the collar of his coveralls shifted, revealing the back of his neck. A faded tattoo surfaced in the lightning's brief glare, a black trident entwined with a coiled serpent, the lines blurred but unmistakable to anyone with the right history. Masterson stiffened. He had glimpsed that mark once, in a sepia photograph during training, an emblem whispered about in stories of the original frogmen, warriors who swam into mined harbors long before the seals were born. The younger men didn't notice. Kane, mistaking calm for surrender, smirked. "That's better," he said. "Pick up your stick, Grandpa." Sully rose to his full height, broom in hand. He didn't speak. Instead, he stepped past Kane, eyes already moving toward the storm-dark windows, listening to something beyond the human noise, a low vibration that only someone seasoned in danger might detect. Chief Masterson broke from the shadows and crossed the gym. His boots made deliberate, echoing steps. "Kane," he said, voice low but carrying authority. "Back off." Kane hesitated. Respect for rank slowed him, but pride kept his chin high. "Just clearing the space, Chief." "Consider it cleared," Masterson replied. His eyes stayed on the tattoo, now half hidden beneath the janitor's collar. A memory flickered behind them. An old manual, a single caption, "Naval Combat Demolitio." The others chuckled. Emboldened, Kane advanced a few steps, boots squeaking on the wet floor. "You deaf, Pops? Or just ignoring orders?" His voice cut across the gym like a thrown blade. Slowly, Sully straightened. The overhead lights caught the deep lines of his face, the calm in his pale eyes. He regarded Kane with the kind of silence that outlasts noise. Then, evenly, "Floor needs to stay dry. Storm brings mud. Slips break bones." The simple practicality only sharpened the young man's temper. "You think I care about mud?" Kane scoffed. "I've crawled through swamps that would make you cry for your mother." A few trainees laughed louder. Kane's hand darted out, knocking the broom from Sully's grip. It clattered across the floor, echoing like a gunshot in the storm-muted air. For a breath, no one moved. The rain's cadence filled the pause, hard, unrelenting. Sully looked down at the fallen broom, then back to Kane. His gaze was steady, almost sorrowful, as though measuring a weight the younger man couldn't see. One of the older SEALs, Chief Masterson, watched from a corner, towel draped around his neck. His veteran eyes narrowed. He'd seen that sort of quiet before, in men who had nothing left to prove and nothing left to fear. In Unit, Pacific Theater, 1944. Living legends who were said to vanish into the sea as quietly as they arrived. Lightning flared again, throwing stark relief across Sully's face. Rain rattled the gym door opened once more. P. Briggs strode in, cap tucked under one arm, eyes scanning the tense scene. "What's going on here?" he barked. Kane stepped back, but his voice was quick. "Just telling the janitor to give us space, sir." Briggs's gaze shifted to Sully, then to Masterson, noting the taut line of the chief's shoulders. "Chief, situation's handled," Masterson said, though his tone carried an undertow of something unspoken. Briggs looked from one to the other, frowning at the strange gravity in the room. Thunder rolled overhead like distant artillery. For a moment he seemed about to press the issue, but the storm cracked again, shaking the windows, and he simply nodded. "Fine. Keep it professional. Everyone, gear check in 5. The trainees dispersed, though Kane shot the janitor a final glare. Sully returned to his sweeping as if nothing had occurred. The sound of bristles against floorboards filled the gym, soft yet unyielding, a counterpoint to the storm. Masterson lingered, eyes fixed on the old man. He knew that mark. He needed confirmation. Stepping aside, he pulled out his phone and minutes stretched, measured only by rain and the steady scrape of the broom. Each stroke seemed to erase the insults, to clean more than dust, a quiet ritual older than the men who mocked him. In the far corner, the emergency exit light flickered. Sully glanced at it once, then at the door to the sea beyond the gym. The habits of a lifetime, assessing escape routes, listening for subtle changes, never faded. A distant crack of thunder sounded like naval artillery to his seasoned ears. For an instant, the decades folded back, and he was again in black water under an enemy sky. He exhaled, slow and deep. The mission, as always, was simple: endure. Let the young reveal themselves. The sea, the storm, and time itself would do the rest. The storm began to ebb near midnight, its anger spent in a slow, steady drizzle. Inside the gym, the fluorescent lights hummed, casting a cold, even glow across the now empty floor. Only Sully remained, broom in hand, tracing deliberate paths over tiles still damp from the leaking roof. The air smelled of wet concrete and salt from the nearby sea. The heavy door opened without warning. Commander Briggs entered, rainwater dripping from his coat. Behind him trailed Chief Masterson and a quiet officer from the Base Records Division. Their faces held a weight that was not merely fatigue. Briggs's eyes locked on the janitor. "Sullivan Harris?" he asked, voice a mix of inquiry and something bordering on reverence. Sully straightened, resting both hands atop the broom handle. "That's right," he said, calm as a tide pool. The commander stepped closer, his boots clicking sharply in the cavernous silence. "I should have recognized you early." A faint flicker of surprise touched Sully's weathered features. "Those files are older than most of the men on this base," he replied. "Didn't think anyone kept them handy." Masterson spoke then, his voice low. "I caught a glimpse of the trident tattoo. Only a handful of those were ever inked." "Sir, he's one of the originals." The younger officer from records held out a faded folder, edges softened by decades. Inside lay photographs, grainy black and white. Teams of wiry men in crude wetsuits, faces half hidden by black grease. In one picture, a much younger Sully crouched beside a bundle of explosives, the same calm in his eyes that he carried now. Briggs studied the image, then the man before him. "The stories of your missions are legend," he said quietly. "Mine's cleared by hand. Harbors breached before the invasion fleet arrived. Without men like you, the landings might never have succeeded." Sully shifted his weight, the broom still his only companion. "Those were team efforts," he said. "Plenty of names never made it home. Remember them before you remember me." The gym door creaked again. Drawn by curiosity, several trainees, including Kane, filed back in. They slowed as they caught the charged atmosphere. Rain dripped from their hair and onto the floor, but none dared speak. Briggs turned to them. Instinct overrode confusion. The recruits snapped to rigid posture, boots aligned. "This man," Briggs continued, motioning to the janitor, "is Chief Petty Officer Sullivan Harris, retired. One of the first frogmen of the United States Navy. He swam into mined waters in darkness so that others could land safely on foreign shores. He has more combat dives than all of you combined have training hours." The words rang through the gym like a ceremonial bell. Kane's eyes widened. Color drained from his face. The broom in Sully's hand seemed suddenly like a staff of quiet authority. Briggs pivoted toward Kane. "I understand there was an incident earlier." Kane swallowed hard. "Yes, sir. He stopped, unable to shape the apology quickly enough. Sully spared him the struggle. "Let it rest, Commander," he said. "Boys need to learn their own lessons. The sea teaches, if they're willing to listen." Briggs gave a curt nod, but turned back to the recruits. "Still, you will offer respect." Kane stepped forward, rain-dark hair clinging to his forehead. His voice was rough but sincere. "Chief Harris, I was out of line. I apologize." Sully regarded him for a long moment, then gave the slightest dip of his head. "Take care of your team," he said quietly. "Out there, respect keeps you alive." A hush settled. The storm outside softened to a whisper of mist against glass. Somewhere deep in the base, a watch bell sounded the change of hour. Briggs faced Sully again. "Chief, the Navy owes you more than a broom and an old locker. If there's anything you need." Sully shook his head. "I have what I need. A place to keep moving. A chance to keep watch." He glanced around the vast room, the echo of decades in his gaze. This gym, these kids, they remind me that the work goes on. Sully gave a gentle half-smile. Ceremonies are for beginnings and farewells. I'm just passing through. He set the broom aside, took a slow step toward the open doorway. The recruits parted instinctively, forming an unspoken aisle of respect. As Sully passed, each straightened unconsciously, spines aligning as if for inspection. At the threshold he paused, listening to the distant hush of the sea beyond the rain. The night smelled of salt and memory. Without turning back, he offered a final thought, voice barely above a murmur, yet carrying to every corner of the gym. Guard the quiet moments. They're where the real battles are won. Then he slipped into the damp darkness, a silhouette swallowed by mist and moonlight.